Hi, straight on the back of episode 14, here comes 15. In my cooler basement here in Portugal, and Boycie's Barrelback, a 20-foot Barrelback, which is marching along, I'm glad to say, at a good pace, having put quite a few hours in. So thanks for your comments. I'm looking them with, I get some good comments, and it's nice to hear that people are interested, particularly guys that are going to build a boat to see what's coming. The last episode I put the shears in. There they are, they're all screwed up there, not glued yet. I've just left them all clamped up here, just so that wood gets itself used to being that shape, and then the idea is to take it off and glue it. You can see I've put the marks in there so that we can match it up, and then I'll just clamp the entire length, so that will then hold that shape, so that when I take this thing apart and put it in its final assembly place, this will be ready just to reassemble. And so what am I doing today? I'm doing the chines today. I'm starting thinking about how to do it, and actually I can probably represent a lot easier up here what I did down there, which was to cut these so that you get a reasonably good joint behind the backs there, and you can see that the frame has to be faired off so that the plywood will run along the side of the boat, and it will touch that. Can't keep it that way. So that's where I am, and this is what I used, is a piece of much more flexible wood, and this is to describe, I think, what the process is. So I've got my two pieces of wood here that I have scarfed in last night. Scarf's going all right. Didn't plane that very well. In fact, it looks like I forgot to plane that one. But that's I'm using two strips of 40 by 15 mahogany, which I've just got a little sample here as to how it will sit on the frame. So I've been thinking about just how am I going to get this right. I was going to put it in like that, which would leave that much to fair off. And I see on some of the videos that what people tend to do is to do it that way and leave the excess on the top, presumably because that's just much easier to plane. So most of these are, particularly back here, 4, 5 and 6, are pretty much at right angles. So the way that you come in here, if I were to do that, is the way that it would go out of the frame there. And you can see there's, because we're roughly at perpendicular to the frame, so this is coming in straight across. So it's a little bit easier to do, but as we start getting back, we start increasing the amount of curve in. So when I put that piece there, in there, that's going to be inside there, which will leave a little piece on the outside here, and that is because you've got to fair this frame in. If it's like so, it's got to come in slightly this way, as it has. You can see the lip there that's got to come in all the way up. So I've got to continue that across here. So just so that I've got this clear in my head, this one here will touch like so, and you can see it tied up against the batten there, and there's some to fair off the top. And on this side, it's going to come out slightly inside of the frame, and that's the amount. I've got some off the top of the wood here, the chine to fair off, and also I've got to fair off the side of the frame all the way down, which will be easily done. This one is kind of even more, and it gets even worse down the transom bit. So I'm just adjusting this. Have I marked this? Because this actually, I think I've got to do some more on that one. That's not working very well. The reason that this is causing me some difficulty is here on the transom. Because if I put my piece of wood in there, you'd think cut it like that and across. You can see the first mark I make, and then I thought, whoa, hang on a second, we're not doing that. We're coming in at 12 degrees here. There's a bit of a bend here between this one and this one. So my piece of wood is going to bend a bit like that, so that it'll come into the Barrelback, as will all of the stringers on the side of the boat. So that's where I'm coming in at that angle, and it's also going to be the same at that angle, because this is already faired off at 12 degrees. So that's actually fairly straightforward. The question is then, when that comes in here at that angle, if I were to put that there, do you see the difference that that makes on that frame there? And it makes a kind of a kink between that one and that one. So I'm wondering whether what I've got to do, if I put it in like so, that looks unnatural because it dips it in. But if I do straight across there, and I fair this piece of wood in to match that 12-degree angle, and then gradually bleed that fairing out as we progress along there, then I think it will look better, because that naturally, you can see the wood there dipping in between frames 1 and 2. As I bend that out, it dips that in, and that would make this bowed inwards. So that's why I kind of do this, because you have to think about this before you pick up your saw and start cutting bits of wood. You got to think about the effects of what you're doing. Down here is one problem, and then of course I haven't got to the other end. That's even more of a problem. But hopefully that'll give you a clue as to my thought process and what I'm going to end up doing. So I'm going to go and think about that. Might even have some breakfast, and I'll cut these frames a bit later on, and we'll come back with what I decided to do and how it will look with the piece of wood. So back down again here late in the evening, because I'm trying to edit the video, and the bit where I was cutting my chines, I don't know, didn't press the record button or something. So so I thought I'd just come in and I'll just fill in the middle bit, the gap that's missing, and then I can add that to my video. So here it is. The chine is in, and I've got some screws holding it all together. I've put the front battens on, attached them. The front is there. That's looking good. So the process, I believe I spoke about how I measured these up, and that like this frame was at 90 degrees, and now I've just got to fair this off here, which you do by those cuts down to there, chisel that out, make the same cuts on this one here, down to, so that's a level, and then just draw a line between the two with your bendy piece of wood, and then you just got to fair that off. This frame is pretty much flat to that one, and because of this is starting to curve in, you can see that the frame kicks out there because that's at right angles, so that just has to be faired off. And what I'll do is I will fair this off before I start cutting in the side battens, because it's just a lot easier, and it'll be something like this, so you don't have a huge amount of fairing work to do. Same on this one, you can see there's a lot more to come off, and on frame 6 a lot more to come off there. And then this one, eventually I did a couple of cuts on this one to get that line correct, and as you can see that one has to be faired off a little bit there, and in fact that's not quite deep enough because that's got to meet that corner there, so I need to take off a little bit more on that one there. But I'm just holding the wood in there and bending it so that it's going to stay that way forever, I hope, when I come off to take this all apart. That one's at right angles, so that's good again, just the top to be faired. This one is starting to kick in, and you can see just a little bit there is needing to be faired in. And this one is a bit of an oddity, so that is at 12 degrees, and that's kind of not matched the kink there, so that has to be faired off, which I'll do. So presumably the plywood is going to take that. That's obviously to get that flare, but there's no point. I'll leave that till I put the plywood on and see how it fits on there, but that's going to have to come off, and then maybe just sort of grind that down to about there, and then leave it at 12 degrees all the way around. So it's gone pretty well. Apart from the straight bits in between the frames, which I'll describe in the next bit, because that looks a little bit odd, but I'll come back to that. because you can see that it's straight between the frames, but it's bent at the frames except at the end there, where that is kinked out quite nicely on its own. And you can't, like here, you can't make this bend out unless you've got another frame in the middle, and so you're getting a straight line and it's bent around the frames. So whether that's intended or whether that's normal, I don't know, but I'll be asking for some opinions later on to see how that goes. So when I come back from work, I'm going to be doing the next side, so I'll make a video of cutting those chines in. I've glued up my scarfed my chine pieces for the other side. That just needs sanding off at the chines, and everything's looking good. So I'll sign off and I'll edit this one in. I'm sorry that I left my earpiece thing and the microphone and it's gone dead, so it's just the camera microphone if the sound is a little bit crap. This is the beauty of this Japanese saw, I believe it's called. I've steamed my batten in here, and it's just come in. I'm holding it in with a clamp, and it's just coming a little bit far beyond the line. This is the line that I've got to shave the stem section off to make it pointed. So I want to make it touch something like I've done down there, give or take. So I'm just taking in a little bit more of a cut, and then because you're looking at the top there, you can cut it exactly parallel, upright and parallel to the stem section. The strange thing is this, the Japanese saws, they cut on the not on the push, on the pull, as it were, of the blade. I don't know why it does that, but it's just different. But the design of this is that you can come in at any angle, whereas with a traditional saw, your hand is upright, so you're always coming in from above. Whereas this, you see, you can cut it from below like that quite easily, and from below underneath, as it were, but you can cut it, from the upright, and you can always keep your hand on that and keep it steady. It's really quite a clever saw. And if I just cut this piece of wood and then push that in there, that's good. That'll do fine. I like that. So I'm probably going to make this a fairly short episode, and a couple of questions having got this side done as regards fairing, and a couple of other things. So I might just wrap this one up and get it out there, see if anybody can answer these questions for me. Anyway, I've done what I'd hoped to done. I've got the shear and the chine strake on, and I've cut the front battens here, cut these off, and I've fed those back into the bow section, and then I've marked a line which is roughly going to follow the shape of the V shape of in the bow. So I've put my two pieces here of wood. I've probably gone a little bit overboard with this wood to make this a bit stronger, and it's kept this out there, and if that is the point where the bow section is fed back to, then I'm going to lose that 20mm piece of wood almost entirely. So I could make it a much blunter section at the top, not that blunt, but I could come back halfway, say lose half of that and fair it out to there, or I could cut this back, say 10mm back to there, and just bend this wood in just a little bit more and cut the ends off, just to bring that in, which is probably a result of me probably putting a thicker piece of wood. I think it's probably 30mm, and I've got 35, 20, 15, yeah, 35. So I've not exactly overdone it. But the other thing I think I'm going to do is to fair these frames in before I start putting in the rest of the battens, because that's just easier to do it now, rather than having to do what I've got to do here, is to somehow fair this in without nicking these pieces of wood. Obviously, if we're going to go with a plane or something, the spoke shaver, you're going to go cross grain here, which is not going to be easier. And I've got now the lines in which to fair all of these frames off, and there's a lip down on each of these frames for the plywood to sit under, and then these are capped with a nice piece of mahogany rounded off, which will be the rubbing strake. These have worked out perfectly. These I can just cut down there, chip that out so it's level with that, and do the same here, and then just draw a line, and that's my fairing line. And then the same again here. This should be faired then to that frame, so that will be the edge on which the plywood will sit. So that makes a lot more sense to do it that way. The other thing that I'm just looking along the line here of this chine, and it's still, this here has got a nice curve on it, but then if you can see there between frames 3 and 4, it's sort of flat and then it bends at the frame. And again here you see it bends here and then it's flat, bends and then it's flat, bends around the frame a bit, and then the last bit towards the transom is another fairly steep, well, it's bending a bit more, so it's a bit more of a curve, but it's kind of, it's curving just round the frames and then it's straight in between. So when the plywood goes on there, that's obviously going to take up that shape. I can round some of this wood off a little bit at the edges of the frames, but I don't know if that's normal or what to do about that. I've never seen one of these in real life, and you don't tend to see the bottoms of them to know whether to look along that line. But if you want to look along the line, you really want to see a nice smooth curve, and I don't seem to have one. And I don't see, I saw it when I was putting the chine in, but there's nothing you can do. There's, you know, you'd need to put a frame in between each one in order to give it that curve. So I'm assuming that this is normal, but I'll put that question out to anyone that's built one or is having got further ahead than me. What did you do? Did you notice that flat section in between the frames? Less so on the shear. Because there appears to be more of a curve all the way in, and that seems to be nicely curved. So I don't think it's because I've built the frames wrong or got the wrong sizes or anything. Everything is looking about where it should be in all this. So does anybody know, what is that normal? Is that acceptable? Does it matter? Do you never see it? So it's boat's upside down at the minute, so obviously I'm studying it in great detail. And what would you do about that? Would you reckon I could just cut that in 10 millimeters there and reshape this shear back in so that it comes in somewhere closer to this, and then I don't need to do it as much as that line up here because it's going to be a flatter bow for sure, and then by the time I get to here around this line, it's going to be far more of a point, and that point will continue all the way down past the frame. Then it'll start flattening off as I get to frame 6. So some fairly interesting shape going on there with the nose section. I kind of really want to get in there and start shaping that to have a look, but the fairing is going to be a big job, I think, on this. I'm going to take a section at a time, and I look forward to that. It's going to be interesting. And then, of course, I get on with plywood, which is the other problem? Yeah, it could be a problem. This is going to be fed down to that line so that the plywood is now going to sit there. It's going to lay on that, and then it's got to come out to this here, because this is how it's going to fare down here, and it's going to lie. Once that is fed down, yes, that's got to come down. So it's going to lie on that line, isn't it? Which is fair enough until you get to here, but then it's not going to turn through 90 degrees there, is it? So how does the plywood lie here? Does it lie there and you just overlap the side pieces on the bottom pieces? Because I think you put the bottom on first, then the side goes on afterwards. And there's 4 layers of 3mm ply here and 3 here. So this is 12mm deep, this is 9mm. So the bottom, no, you'd probably want to put the side piece on over the top of this so that you have an edge, almost like a splash rail. So what happens just here? How do you fare that right down so that it can lie flat on there? Yeah, I need to have a look, because some people have put some extra pieces in round here on the side battens, because they're fairly small. They're 20 by 15, I think. So as always, few things to think ahead and ask a few questions, read up on the books and to find out how it's done. I'll get there, no doubt. So in the meantime, many thanks. If you make any comments, thanks for watching, and I hope it's useful if you're ever going to be building a barrelback, and it'll give you some idea of what's coming. Cheers, and I'll see you the next time.